Good afternoon and welcome to the Middle East Teaching and Learning Conference. My name is Pilar Astorga and I am an experienced IB Primary Years Program teacher and leader. I was born in Chile in South America and my journey as an educator has brought me to the United Arab Emirates, where I'm working at the moment in a school called RAC Academy. I am the English language coordinator and one of the primary years teachers, and I am thrilled to be able to be here today to build a learning community around one of the methodologies that I love, which is called concept-based teaching and learning. Today, just as it states here, we're going to be reviewing some strategies that this methodology gives you to be able to embrace a wonderful classroom full of deep thinking and great ideas. We're going to be able to analyze together the paradigm shift this methodology presents itself, and also to identify and plan simple teaching strategies that you can use to promote synergistic thinking in your classroom, thinking to a deeper level, so they are able to make connections not only in between subjects, but also connections to their own life at the moment and in the future. Don't forget, please, and remember to submit your questions in the Q&A section of the WOBA app, which is the application that we're using for the conference today. I'm going to be able to answer your questions and any doubts that you have through the app while we're checking this session together. So to start, I would like us to go and check this picture that I'm showing here. For me, the caption says it all. Less us and more them. The paradigm shift that we've been checking together in education for the last century actually tells you that how the teacher has to be less the center of the lesson, while the student has to be at the center of it. The student has to be the one that leads the learning and makes that learning interesting and deeper and meaningful. The idea about concept-based teaching learning is that in the world that we have today, we need to be able to give students the tools to be able to process the information in a different way. Nowadays, with internet, students are able to find information about many things in the blink of an eye. Memorizing and things that probably teachers used to put an emphasis before. Nowadays, it's not something that we would like to use in the classroom, not because it's not important, but because the world that our students are going to face is completely different to the world that we faced after we left school many years ago. So why is it so important? Why concepts can give you what you need to be able to make your classroom deeper and more meaningful? The idea about this is behind the fact that concept-based teaching and learning provides another dimension to what you're teaching in the classroom. And that's what I want you to check from now on with me. When I'm talking about a third dimension, I'm talking about how our curriculum model has changed over time in the last century. I would have to say that probably before, we used to worry a little bit more about the process and the skills we need to help our students to comprehend and apply, and the factual content that we need them to comprehend. The thing about this is that, of course, we need them to understand some factual content. You have contents that you need to cover. I know that, believe me, I'm a teacher. Any level that you're working at, you're going to be able to have a clear perspective of the contents you need to cover. But the thing is that you cannot make it all about that. Of course, we know that with that content, we need skills that have to help us process that content, right? So we know that we need them to apply, and not only apply, but create and evaluate and recognize, and all the things that you can think of that we call skills. We know what the students need to know and what the students need to do. The thing about this is that when you focus your teaching mainly on those two dimensions, You're going to realize that there are going to be students that can memorize the factual content perfectly. But when they have to actually apply that content with different skills, they fail to do so. Probably because there was something that they didn't understand, some step that they missed, but they failed to do that transition. Also, you have a lot of students that probably know very well how to analyze and do certain skills, but they are very, very bad in memorizing the content. So probably they're going to fail with that as well. The thing about concept-based teaching is that it actually involves a third dimensional. So you're not only going to worry about the skills in the process and the factual content, but you're going to actually include a third dimension in teaching, which is the concepts and generalization. When I talk about concepts, you're going to see in a while what they really are, but actually it's a mental construct you have in your head that it's abstract. So you're going to be able to connect that concept to different subjects, and not only to different subjects, but to your life. Why are we going to be able to connect it to our life? I'm going to feel that I know something about it. I'm going to feel that my prior knowledge in every single class that we have from every single subject, in every single level, there's something I already know about that. Something that rings a bell. Because I'm dealing with the concept, I'm not dealing with the content. I'm not talking about the World War I, which is specific to a certain time, place, and you know that it's actually something that happened in that only certain parties were involved with that. So we know it's something that people don't know. If they haven't read about it, if they haven't heard about it, if they have no idea about that information, they have no prior knowledge about World War I. But if we center the conversation into the concept of war, it's going to be way different, because everybody knows at least, or has at least a preconception about what a war is. At least you know there's a problem in between two parties. It could be between countries, it could be in between people. You know at least that a war probably has some negative connotation, that sometimes it involves death. For example, sometimes it involves politics. So then the classroom starts talking. It stops being a quiet classroom, and you can start getting that prior knowledge easily, because everybody knows something about that concept, because you can put it in different situations. You can actually get to have a lot of ideas about that without knowing about World War I, because that's a content that we haven't taught yet. So concepts make your teaching deeper. And not only because of that, not only because the concept itself makes you analyze something from a different perspective, but actually because with the help of the concepts and the factual content and the process and the skills, you're going to be able to allow students to make generalizations. Generalizations are what we can call big ideas. For people that work in IB, probably you know that we call them central ideas. But if you don't work with IB, don't worry. You need to know it's a big idea. And a big idea means that it's something that is essential. It's something that actually is going to tell you why we're learning what you're teaching. So if I'm teaching about fractions, yeah, I know I have to teach certain ways and certain things and content for my students to understand. But if I, at the end of the teaching of the fractions, I'm able to ask my students, why do you think we teach fractions? Why did you learn it? How are you going to use it in your daily life? Most of the answers that you're going to get is because I need to share. I need to know how to share properly. If I don't use fractions correctly, probably I'm going to give someone a bigger amount of pizza than the other person, and that's not going to be fair. So then you start having different conversations in the classroom about being fair, learning how to share, that sharing is caring, and many things that you can get to see. I can get to listen to that with my grade 2 students this year a lot. And actually, they got really excited about it because they realized that what we were teaching in math was not only because I said so. It's not only because you have to, because you're in school and you need to learn. It's because you're going to apply it. It's because you're going to use it in your daily life. And that boosts the motivation in the classroom, actually like you've never seen it before. So it's very important that we get to consider that inside of our thinking classroom. Something else that it's very important about this is that if we switch to this third dimensional model, we're going to leave behind this model of two dimension that fails to meet the intellectual demands of the 21st century. You know that is coverage centered. You know that when you start worrying about, am I covering the right contents, we're leaving something aside. We need to focus in something deeper than just the coverage of the contents. And more than that, you're going to have a curriculum that's intellectually shallow, and that most likely it's not going to allow you to transfer to another subject, to their life, make meaning about it. So when we go to this three-dimensional model, we're going to be able to develop the intellect to handle a world of increasing complexity and accelerating change. We're going to be able to give them a little help to realize that what they are learning in the classroom, it's going to actually be useful for their entire life. And not only that, we're going to get them to center in ideas, to center their learning in ideas, ideas that are worth to learn, to feel that what they are learning is meaningful, and that it's actually intellectually deep. And all those things that you're going to be able to do with this three-dimensional model are going to allow their brains to make connection and see patterns, like we said, not only in between subjects, but also to their lives, and become lifelong learners, which is actually what we want our students to become now. Think of this model, okay? Think of how important it is not only for students to know content, but to actually do things. But if they understand why we know this and why we do this, you're going to be able to actually engage them into a deeper level. Believe me, they are going to get motivated. Furthermore, if you're teaching in high school, they have so many things in their head that if you don't give meaning to what you're teaching, they might let you completely off. They can disconnect from your lesson and they are not going to care. But when you're able to ask them to think about this, think why we're learning what we're learning. Why are we doing this in the lesson of music? Why are we learning about football in physical education? Let's think in all the subjects, and you're going to be able to see how ideas are starting to appear and how they get motivated with learning, which is at the end of the day what we really need them to be able to get to a deeper level in our classroom. Okay, so after analyzing the dimensions in teaching, now we need to know what is a concept. I think that's one of the main things that we need to understand. And the interesting thing about a concept is that it's actually a building block for deep understanding. It's actually a word that will allow you to support the transfer of ideas, not only between subjects, like mostly we do, for example, for people that use the IB, but not only that, but actually we're going to be able to transfer ideas through time, across cultures, and across situations. And that's what makes them so powerful. How can we do that? How can a simple word do that? And actually the thing is that a concept is not a simple word, it's a mental construct in your head. It's an organizing idea. And why do we say it's a mental construct or an organizing idea? Because it's timeless. It cannot be related to a specific period of time. You can relate it to many periods because it's going to be timeless. It's going to be something you can relate to many things, situations, and process that you can live, right? It's going to be universal, which is also very important. Doesn't matter where you are in the world, you're going to have an idea about that concept in your head. And I would say one of the most important characteristics of a concept is that it's abstract. to different degrees, of course, because if you get the concept of line in math, you're going to have an idea of a line. You can see it, right? So it's not that abstract, but still abstract to a different degree than the concept of war, like we said before. The concept of war, it's going to be way more abstract than the concept of line, but both are abstract anyway, just to different degrees, as I explained. They have to be represented by 1 or 2 words, and the examples of it have to share common attributes. If the word that you're thinking about is actually able to meet these criteria, then you're working with a concept. And the nice thing about a concept is that it is on a higher level than the content and the skill itself. It's going to be able to be like an umbrella for your lesson. So when you think about the concept, you're going to think about something that will embrace your entire lesson. So it's going to give you a direction of what you're going to teach. It's going to give your lesson a special taste for everybody. And actually, it's going to also be able to help you make the right questions. When you have a concept in mind, this is going to help you make more meaningful questions for your lesson. Because if you know you're going to work with the concept of structure, then probably your question is not going to be, what's the structure of this problem? You're going to probably start to think at a deeper level. And you're not going to work with the content specifically, but with the concept itself. And that's going to allow students, like we said before, to make deeper and more meaningful connections between the content that you're teaching and the skills that you're asking them to apply. Even though we have many concepts, we're going to realize that they could be quite different because they come in different sizes. So you're going to be able to see that whereas they are all timeless, universal, that they are abstract, that their examples share common attributes, you're still going to have concepts that are going to be very big and broad, and concepts that are going to be very specific to the subject that you're teaching. The broad and big concept, it's going to be called macro concept, and that concept can be so big that they can transcend disciplines, like the concept of system that you can get to see in science, math, music, physical education, and every single subject that you're going to teach. Same happens with the concept of change. It's a big concept. You're going to be able to check the concept of change in every single subject that you can get to teach in school, in every level. Same thing happens with order and many other concepts that you're going to be able to analyze on the list that I'm sharing with you at the end of this session. But not all of them are macro concepts. You can still have also what we call micro concepts. And the thing about this is that the micro concepts are what I would say are the most rich and entertaining about the discipline because they are very related to what you teach. They are very related to what you need your students to understand. So whereas you can make connections with a macro concept, you're always going to get students to center in one micro concept that you need them to understand. So just as the examples you can have here, you can have the macro concept in language arts of character, but the micro concepts inside probably are going to be protagonist, antagonist, confidant, foil, and many others that you can think. They are more specific, but they are still concepts. The thing is that they are micro concepts while character is a macro concept, bigger, broader. Same thing happened with geography in the concept of region. The concept of region is a macro concept. It's huge. You can have a lot of examples about that. But then when you talk about physical environment, landforms, growth rates, then you're starting to go deeper into what you really need your students to understand. Same thing with measurement, mathematics, and many other concepts that you can think about. So what I want us to do now actually is to analyze a little video about a teacher called Jeff Hoseley, that he's a high school economics teacher. And he's going to use the macro concept of system in his class about demand and supply. So it's very important that you get to see what he's doing, because he's actually giving us a very, very nice example of how we can use concepts in the classroom to make that understanding deeper. Let's see what he says.
Okay. This is a market where if people need kidneys, they're going to get kidneys, right? And like Yana said, if we let the market, if we get rid of the interference in the market, if the government interference goes away, and we pay people for their organs, more people will donate. We go from 20,000 donors to 50,000 donors. Okay? And then if we do that also, then people who think they want kidneys don't always really want them. They go and look for other things, whether it was dialysis, herbal remedies, some other type of change to try and fix their kidneys. And we lose the shortage that we had of 60,000, the waiting list, and we find an equilibrium of 50,000. This is a system. Okay, this is a system for people to get kidneys. Okay, what other systems do we have out there? What are you doing right now?
School.
Learning.
Learning. What are you doing right personally right now?
Breathing.
Breathing. Is that a system? Yeah. Do you think about it?
No.
No. Okay, so you don't have to think about it, but it's a respiratory system. So as you breathe, oxygen comes in, goes in your blood, you do fine. You have a system where you wake up in the morning, right?
No.
Some of you it doesn't work real well sometimes, but it's a system. So whether it's the kidney market or it's just breathing or how you do things, systems go across all other things, okay? And so when we're looking at systems, in this system specifically, what's the D stand for?
Demand.
Demand, okay? Is there a system for people who demand kidneys?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because they have a process that they have to go through if they want to get a transplant. Is there a system for the people that supply kidneys?
Yes.
Yeah. Do these systems work together?
Not always.
Do they have to somehow depend on each other?
Yeah.
Yeah. So are they interdependent or independent? Interdependent. Okay. So systems are going to be interdependent. Okay? And that's kind of how we have to look at this, that there are different sets of rules up here and different things that are happening, but they have to function together for it to work.
In the previous video, we were able to see a high school teacher working with different types of concepts to be able to analyze the idea of supply and demand in economics. And I think that's exactly what makes it so interesting, because you can see how meaningful and deeper the conversation and discussion in the classroom becomes. The power of a conceptual lens is amazing, because just like you can see in the picture there, it allows students to analyze things from different perspectives. It also creates a deeper level of understanding, and it helps them retain the factual information because it must be processed at a deeper level in the brain. It facilitates a greater love of learning, and that's probably one of the things I like the most about this. At the beginning of the session, we talked about synergistic thinking, and the synergistic thinking is actually that. It's to be able to develop the intellect and increase motivation in the classroom. You're going to be able to create a synergy between the lower and the higher levels of thinking, because you're making a connection between the factual and conceptual understanding. And that's what we call integrated thinking. You integrate thinking at a deeper level. And that's why it's so entertaining for students to do this, because they are facing different types of questions, different types of discussions, and different types of exercises in every lesson you present. In the following video, and the last one we're going to check in our session, we're going to check an example from a 3rd grade class from Miss Marian Kroll, who is able to use the concept of perspective to analyze a book in a different way. So instead of asking the simple questions of what were the characters in the story and what were the parts of the story, the beginning, the middle, and end, you were able to use the concepts to be able to analyze that book in depth. So she is going to ask those questions that probably if you teach English language arts, you're going to be able to replicate in your lessons. Let's check what she does.
How about we say Ramona's perspective was that her father shouldn't smoke and smoking was bad? Well, Mr. Poe's perspective was he wanted to shoot the panda because he was eating the honey, but Louis' perspective on that was he told Mr. Poe no because that's the symbol of our country and soon we won't have any left.
In this lesson, the concept that we are working on is perspective.
A concept is going to be universal. That means we'll find it in any culture. It's going to be timeless. The nice thing about the concepts are that they will never change.
These third-grade students have read a number of books in social studies and literature. In this lesson, they'll analyze the facts and information from these books using the conceptual lens of perspective to arrive at an essential understanding.
In the video, we were able to realize how the concept of perspective helps students to analyze the facts of a simple book to a deeper level. The conceptual lens helps students to understand the big idea behind what they are learning, and I think that's why it makes them so special. It can also be used for them to generate that idea at the end of a lesson or unit, because it will allow them to summarize their understanding of the facts and concepts presented. So we're going to be able to probably use some concepts to summarize the ideas they got from a book, summarize the ideas they got from the objective of a certain lesson, and we're going to be able to help them make more meaningful and deeper connections. How do we use this? If we take a look at this exercise, I would like you to think a little bit with me and look at the 3 topics that I'm presenting here. The cell, a very important topic of biology. Football, something that you're able to check in physical education. And the clef, which is something that you have to teach in music as well. So if we take a look at the topic of the cell, what concepts, what conceptual lens come to your mind? How can you teach this concept, this content from a conceptual perspective? So if you think about it, you might think of concepts like structure and reproduction. And then you can analyze the facts that the cell provides to be able to check what is the connection between the concept of structure and a cell. Why is reproduction so important in a cell? And you can start asking meaningful questions. I know that most of us work with objectives. We have learning objectives that we plan every day. And the thing about learning objectives is that they don't transfer ideas. They don't transfer those big ideas. But if you get to ask the meaningful right question, you're going to be able to get your students connected to what you're teaching, interested in what you're teaching, and most of all, they're going to feel challenged to answer that question at the end of the lesson. So make sure that once you know the concepts you're going to use for the lesson, you can ask questions using those concepts as well. The guiding question you're going to use at the beginning of the lesson is very important for them to feel connected, interested, and motivated with what they're learning. In the case of football, in physical education, I know football is all about being active and it's very entertaining. I know most of kids love it. But it's very nice if we're able to make connections to what the teachers are teaching as well. We all need to be able to center in collaboration. We have to center around that. How do we collaborate in the classroom and out of the classroom? And football in physical education is a perfect example to work with the concept of collaboration. Why do we have to collaborate with one another in a team? Otherwise, we're not going to be able to achieve our goal. So it's very important that not only the teacher inside of the classroom works with that, but also the teachers that are outside of the classroom in situations that are so meaningful and active, like a football court. So thanks a lot to all the physical education teachers that actually make those connections, because you're helping a lot students to understand these things, these type of concepts that are so important. For example, the concept of rule. You have the golden rules in the classroom and the essential agreements and everything that you work at the beginning of the year when you start a learning community in your classroom. But if the physical education teacher is able to reinforce that in every single sport that they teach by saying, do you remember the rules? What are the rules of your classroom? Well, in this sport, we do have rules as well. If that teacher do that, then you're going to be reinforcing concepts that are in the classroom all the time, and you're going to make them more meaningful. more entertaining, and they are going to become more motivated. Same thing with the clef. A lot of kids love music. And if you think about clef, you can actually embrace that topic or that specific content in what a symbol is. Students know many symbols, and they know, for example, what pitch might mean. So they can have an idea of what the clef is going to be about. Why do we use it in musical notation? So that is something very important, to be able to realize how concepts help us make our classroom better, deeper, and more meaningful. So to wrap up what we've been learning today in this session, I'm going to show you this, actually an integrated interdisciplinary unit that you can actually plan all together with different subject teachers. You can get to plan literacy, physical education, art, math, science, and every single subject around the concept of system. And they will probably all respond to a big idea about our amazing bodies. If you're able to do that, then you're going to realize how you can integrate thinking into a deeper level and use concepts in your daily teaching. As we said, concepts enrich the learning experience. I was able to see these through my students, and with the pictures I'm showing you, you can see them all. If you're able to use the concepts in the classroom, they're going to feel that the learning experiences are way more interactive and motivating than if you leave them out of the equation. Concepts allow deeper thinking and transfer of skills. If you're able to use a lot of conceptual maps, and if you're able to make a lot of connections in between not only subjects but their lives, you're going to see how they are motivated about learning. And also, concepts allow students to explore a topic from different perspectives. And I think that's what makes it so interesting. You can show them a picture like like what you're seeing there in my classroom, and they're going to be able to analyze that picture from different perspectives using different concepts and being able to realize different things about what you're teaching in your classroom. That's why this is so powerful. We're making lifelong learners. We're getting them to organize their learning in a better way thanks to the mental connections they make. And students will comprehend why they are learning and how useful that will be in their lives. If you want to read a little bit more about concept-based teaching and learning, you're going to be able to see these two people here. Lynn Erickson and Lois Lanning are the people that actually wrote about this and that actually certified me in the Netherlands a few years ago. So this is very, very nice because they've written a lot of books that I think could be very helpful in your teaching. One that I really like now that I'm useful a lot is the Designing Concept-Based Curriculum for English Language Arts. I recommend all of them, and if you want to read them all, that's going to be even better because this is a methodology that we use in many countries around the world. So it's very nice to start understanding what this is about, why so many teachers are using it around the globe, and why probably your students are going to be very happy that you start using it as well. So if there are any questions you have now, any things that you would like to analyze with me, probably your plannings or guiding questions or anything you would like to use in your classroom, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me. This is my personal email and I will be happy to be able to answer any question, interact in discussions, and probably have some online meetings like we're doing now. So if you need my help, don't hesitate to ask me, and I'm glad that you were able to be here with me today. My name, as I said, is Pilar Astorga, and I hope that you really like this presentation about concept-based strategies in the thinking classroom. Take care and hope that you continue enjoying the rest of the Middle East Teaching and Learning Conference. Bye-bye.